So, what if I told you the next huge leap forward isn't going to come from just copying what already works? What if it's about creating something totally new out of thin air? That's really the core idea behind Peter Thiel's famous book, Zero to One. And trust me, this is way more than just another business book. It's kind of like a playbook for building the future, for going from nothing to something, from zero to one.
All right, so where does a journey like this even begin? Well, for Thiel, his whole philosophy, the whole thing, it kicks off with just one question. And it sounds simple, but it's designed to really dig deep and find some unconventional thinking.
And here's the question right here. What important truth do very few people agree with you on? I mean, really think about that for a second. It's tough, isn't it? Because, pretty much everything we're taught in school is stuff that everyone already agrees on. A really good answer to this question isn't just some edgy, unpopular opinion. No, it's about seeing the present in a totally new light, which, when you think about it, is about as close as we can get to actually seeing the future. Okay, so that question perfectly sets up the book's main idea. Zero to one, that's the pure act of creation. It's like you have a typewriter, and then bam, someone invents a word processor. That's what Thiel calls technology. Now, 1 to n, that's just copying what already works. It's taking that one typewriter and just making 100 more of them. And that's what he calls globalization. So you can really picture this as two totally different ways to make progress. You've got horizontal progress, which is all about spreading ideas that are already out there. But then you have vertical progress. That's the deep stuff, creating brand new ideas. So it's replication versus pure invention. So what's Thiel's own contrarian answer? Well, he says that most of us think the future is going to be shaped by globalization. More of the same, just spread everywhere. But he believes the real truth is that technology matters way more. And why is that? Because just spreading the old ways of doing things in a world with limited resources, well, that's just not going to work long term. It's not sustainable. We absolutely need new technology to create a truly better future. All right, first up, Thiel takes aim at a huge sacred cow in the business world, our obsession with competition. I mean, we're taught from day one that competition is what makes capitalism great, right? But should that really be the goal for a business? So in economics, you've basically got two models. On one side, you have perfect competition. This is where businesses sell stuff that's so similar that all the profits just get competed away right down to zero. It's a constant daily fight just to survive. But then you have a monopoly. Now, this isn't the evil board game version. We're talking about a company that's so uniquely good at what it does that nobody else can even come close. That kind of company can actually create lasting value and, more importantly, plan for the future. And here's the kicker, the paradox that just flips everything we think we know on its head. Thiel says, capitalism and competition are opposites. Think about it. If capitalism is all about building up capital, but perfect competition basically destroys all profits, well then the very thing we call competition is actually the enemy of a successful business. Wild, right? This leads to this weird situation where businesses kind of lie about what they are. Monopolies, they'll bend over backwards to tell you how much competition they have, mostly so regulators leave them alone. And then the companies stuck in those brutal competitive markets, they'll shout from the rooftops about how unique they are just to get some attention. The truth is, the gap between these two types of businesses isn't small. It's absolutely massive. So, this whole idea of avoiding competition, it flies directly in the face of another big myth, one that was born from the ashes of the dot-com bubble. Thiel's argument is that the crash taught Silicon Valley all the wrong lessons about how to build a great company. Now, if you were around in the late 90s, you remember what it was like, just this feeling of insane optimism. It was like a gold rush in Silicon Valley. The NASDAQ was shooting for the moon, and everyone just believed that these huge, grand visions for the future weren't just possible, they were practically guaranteed. And then, pop, the whole thing came crashing down. And this wasn't just some financial adjustment on a chart. No, it was a psychological blow. The collapse was seen as this big cosmic judgment on all the ambition and, let's face it, the hubris of the 90s. And what came out of that? A huge backlash that swapped out all that bold optimism for a bunch of rigid, fear-based rules. Yeah, and out of that fear, these four big dogmas popped up that honestly still run a lot of startup thinking today. First, only make tiny incremental steps. No more big leaps. Second, stay lean and flexible, which, as Thiel points out, is often just code for having no plan at all.
Third, just try to be a little better than your competitors. And fourth, this big one, believe that if your product is good enough, it'll just sell itself so you don't have to worry about sales. But Thiel says, nope, we should believe the exact opposite. He says it's way better to risk being bold than to waste your time on something trivial, that even a bad plan is better than no plan whatsoever, that competitive markets, well, they're for losers, and that sales and distribution, they're every bit as important as the product. The bottom line is, we need to get some of that 1999 ambition back. All of this really boils down to a fundamental question about how you see the future. Do you see it as something definite, something you can shape? Or is it just indefinite, a random series of events? Is your success going to be the result of a plan or just dumb luck? Are you the one driving? Or are you just clutching a lottery ticket and hoping for the best? Thiel actually has this really brilliant grid to explain this. On one axis, you've got your view of the future. Definite, meaning you can plan it, or indefinite, meaning it's all up to chance. And on the other axis, you can be optimistic or pessimistic about it. Think about the US back in the 50s and 60s. That was a time of definite optimism. They had huge concrete plans for a better future, building the interstate system, going to the moon. They knew what they wanted and they went and built it. So where does that leave us today? Well, Thiel argues we're stuck in a state of indefinite optimism. We just kind of assume the future will be better, but we don't really have any specific plans for how to get there. This is why, students just pile on a million different extracurriculars for some fuzzy, unknowable future. And it's why finance, which is all about rearranging money that already exists, has become so much more prestigious than engineering, which is about creating brand new things. Okay, so how do we pull all of this together? The monopoly idea, definite futures, bold plans. It all connects to one fundamental principle. It's a universal law that's kind of hidden in plain sight. It's called the power law. Venture capital is the perfect place to see this in action. We tend to think those fall on a bell curve, right? But the world often operates on a power law. What that means is, in a successful VC fund, the single best investment won't just do a little better than the others. It will actually be worth more than every other company in the fund combined. It's this idea that a very small number of things have a massively outsized impact. And the lesson here is incredibly personal. Our whole culture screams at us to diversify, right? Keep your options open, don't put all your eggs in one basket. But Thiel's point is that your life, it isn't a stock portfolio. You can't just try out a dozen different careers and hope one of them pans out. The power law tells us that real success comes from finding that one thing you are uniquely good at and going all in. And that all leads to this one final, really powerful idea. The future isn't something that just happens to you. It's not some random lottery that you just have to endure. It's something you can design, something you can create. It's about saying no to the tyranny of luck and instead making a definite plan to build the future you actually want to live in. Because, as Thiel puts it so perfectly, you are not a lottery ticket.